Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. A dumpster fire on the left. That is the subject of tonight's Waters Words. The media won't tell you, but the Democrats had the worst week they've had in years. Let's take a look. Elizabeth Warren, top-tier presidential candidate, busted for racial identity theft. Here's a Texas State Bar registration card where she claimed her race was American Indian. She's toast. A plagiarism scandal rocking the top echelons of the liberal media. The former executive editor of the New York Times, Jill Abramson, her new book's about the press, apparently riddled with sloppy errors and rampant plagiarism. She got smoked by Martha MacCallum earlier this week.
The paragraphs are very similar in your writing. Do you have any comment on this? There's another one. Lizzie Wildcom, the bad boy brand. I mean, you're going to be asked to respond to this at some point, and I'll put them right in front of you.
You know, all I can tell you is, I certainly didn't plagiarize in my book.
No, sure you didn't. Makes you think, what kind of operation was she running at the Times all these years? And the media fact checkers are lying to you. The president at the State of the Union said violent crime in El Paso, Texas, dropped after a border wall was built. But the next day, fact checkers claim the president lied. Look at this Vox headline here. A border fence did not lower crime rates in El Paso. In fact, crime went up a bit. Now, that's a total dishonest distortion of the facts. The media cherry-picked the timeline from the time money was authorized for the wall and until only 2011 to make it look like crime went up. But the facts are, when the wall was completed in El Paso in 2009, there were, 3,300 violent crimes reported that year. And in 2016, the latest year data was available, about 2,600 violent crimes were reported. Crime dropped 20% since the wall was erected in El Paso. Now, the fact checkers have become fake news. Socialism on the rise. Here's the president at the State of the Union.
America was founded on liberty and independence, and not government coercion, domination, and control. We are born free, and we will stay free. Tonight, we renew our resolve that America will never be a socialist country.
Notice how all the Democrats sat. And by the way, Democrats refused to stand against infanticide as well. Also this week, the Democrats unveiled a Green New Deal. It's Marxism. Here's what it calls for. You ready? Abolish fossil fuels, free housing, free healthy food, free money for those unwilling to work, free education for life, abolish air travel, rebuild and upgrade all existing buildings in the United States of America. And we're going to have some fun with that with our next guest in a second. Blackface scandals continue to humiliate Democrats in Virginia. The governor and the state attorney general both appearing in blackface. Yet, no one's resigned. The number 2 Democrat in Virginia has been accused of sexual assault. And he's riding it out, too. What a mess. So Democrats had a hell of a week. Infanticide supporting socialists, blackface identity thieves, and Kavanaugh hypocrites, all supported by the lying, plagiarizing media. Trump is going to feast on these people. Here with reaction, Chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, Republican Congressman Mark Meadows. So, Congressman, what did you think about my commentary at the top?
You know, you're spot on, and we can laugh about it, but the American people need to sit up and take notice. The Democrat Party is shifting to the left, and they're serious about many of the things that you were talking about. And you just, I mean, when we talk about getting rid of air travel in the United States and rebuilding every building, I can tell you, here's the interesting thing, Jesse.
Well, just one thing, Congressman. Yeah. It was a great reaction by the senator from Hawaii, who's a Democrat, when she was asked about this. She goes, well, that's going to be a little bit of a problem for people living in Hawaii.
Well, they're going to put a high-speed channel from Los Angeles all the way to Hawaii.
A channel? Channel. Okay.
I mean, come on. We've gotten to the point where we see it as ridiculous. The American people see it as ridiculous. Nobody here on Capitol Hill are really looking at this and taking it seriously, but they should.
Well, okay, so you're saying no one on Capitol Hill is taking it seriously, but I believe 3 presidential candidates, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, they've all endorsed the Green New Deal. So I guess they're for abolishing air travel. And my favorite is free income for those unwilling to work.
You know, let me just tell you, there's a whole lot of people that if they could get a paycheck and not have to go to work, I think they would opt for that.
We're not one of those people, though, Congressman, right?
No,
we would
I'm
never
not.
do that.
Well, I tell you what, I love work. I believe that you ought to be paid according to the effort that you put forth. But here's the interesting thing is, Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, when you really look at that, she wants to come after your insurance, your private insurance, your guns. Now they're saying, well, we want to come after your airplanes, your money, your buildings. Right. I mean, what else is next?
You mentioned buildings, okay? So they want to upgrade or completely knock down and rebuild every single building in the United States. Now, here in New York City, just to build a new building takes about 3 years to get a permit. I don't see how they can do this all across this land.
Well, they can't do it all across the land. It's ludicrous to suggest that. Even the permitting process, and they're talking about doing this in the next 10 to 15 years. I mean, wow. I mean, where are they going to get all the money from to even implement it?
I know where they're getting it from. One of the people supporting this says we can just print money, Congressman.
Yeah.
You know, like Zimbabwe did. Remember what happened with Zimbabwe? Like $1 is worth like 3 trillion of their currency.
And when we take a grocery bag of dollar bills to buy bread, they will understand, it's just like in Venezuela. It starts out with socialism as a good idea. Eventually you come to, are there enough rabbits to feed the people? I mean, come on.
Yeah, we want to walk our dogs in America. We don't want to eat our dogs in America.
Exactly.
You bring up animals. I'm still looking. I'm astounded by this stuff. They say they want to eventually abolish cow flatulence because there's methane in that. And I read that to be because you can't stop cows from flatulating. You got to eliminate cows, which means they're coming after our hamburgers, Congressman.
Well, there's a lot of bull here on Capitol Hill. I can tell you that getting rid of some of that cow would be okay, but this is really just ridiculous. So they're going to come after your money and now your cows. I mean, listen, America should take notice, because there are people here in Washington, D.C. who are dead serious about putting forth this extreme agenda and making sure that they take their money and give it to someone else.
It's Soviet communism, and I believe, I'm sure you believe too, the Trump White House must be licking their chops to run against these people in 2020. I'll give you the last word.
Well, they are, and when you look at the extreme nature of what they're putting out there, that's why this president does so well. He connects to the union worker in Ohio and to the farmer in the Midwest, and he knows what makes this country work. It's hard work, sweat, and tears, and obviously he supports them.
All right, Congressman, thanks for coming on Water's World. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse.
All right, President Trump receiving thunderous applause from one person in particular at this week's State of the Union. Nancy Pelosi, watch this.
We must reject the politics of revenge, resistance, and retribution, and embrace the boundless potential of cooperation, compromise, and the common good.
Body language expert Tanya Ryman joins me now. Tanya, what was that sarcastic little clap?
This? Yeah.
What was that? What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, when you do something like that, first of all, what she did was intentional, right? She got really close to him, as close as she could. She tilted her head. She had on that smirk, and then she clapped as loudly as she could. And it was a powerful, aggressive clap. So, of course...
An aggressive clap?
Yeah, meaning like, hey, versus... so...
Was it sarcastic, or did she really believe what the president was saying about coming together? Okay.
It was utterly sarcastic. Yes, this was her way of saying this is ridiculous and I am stronger than you think I am.
Oh, okay. So it was a power clap.
Oh, definitely.
All right, let's go to another moment from the State of the Union when the president said, we're in great shape. Listen.
The state of our union is strong.
Well, what I found interesting, when the president says something that he knows is going to land, he steps back and then looks around like this. And you notice Pence clapped and Nancy stayed seated.
Well, two things. He does do that, but he looks primarily to his base. So when you're watching him, notice he pulls away from the podium, and then he faces who he knows is going to give him the bigger applause, and then he lifts his chin up, and that's a power move. So it's like he's absorbing the energy.
He's receiving the applause.
And so he doesn't bother looking at the Democrats because he knows that they're not standing. Instead, and that's an anchoring movement. You do that, so it's almost like you anchor your positives, and then you anchor your negatives. So every time he talks about good stuff, it's always towards his people, and then when he talks about bad things, he thinks it's about, I'm going to anchor it towards the people who don't like me that much.
Anchoring your positives.
Yeah,
I like that.
Really, that's a powerful move, and he does it often.
I'm going to start anchoring my positives a little bit more.
Okay, make sure they're towards me.
Okay,
right.
Sounds good. All right, finally, we're going to go to another moment when I think all the Democrat ladies in white got some love. Let's listen.
We also have more women serving in Congress than at any time before.
So what do you think?
This was really powerful for two reasons. The first reason is people they want to get rid of Nancy, but you see, she was the one who got those people up. So don't disclose.
Did she?
Oh yeah, that was her.
Up?
Yeah, that was her. She's more powerful than people want to give her credit for. But more importantly, Donald Trump initially didn't realize the face is like an emotional transmitter.
There she is.
Yeah, see?
She's conducting the orchestra right there.
So he didn't realize initially that was mocking. So the emotional transmitter facial expression took a few seconds. Then he realized it was sarcasm, and he turned around and he said, "Thank you," because he has to save face. But that was truly against him, and a lot of people didn't get that either.
Okay. All right, Tanya, I'm going to be emotionally anchoring all weekend. Thank you very much. Good. All right. Coming up, taking a closer look at celebrities in blackface. Where do you see this list? And later, O.J. Simpson back on the scene, talking politics.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games. We got everything you want. What are we the next wheel?
Virginia's top three officials, all Democrats, standing their ground as the state's totally swept up in controversy. Governor Ralph Northam, identified as a person in blackface or draped in a Klan robe in his medical school yearbook. He denies that, but who knows? The state's lieutenant governor has been accused of sexual assault, and the state's third in line, the attorney general, he admits he once wore blackface at a college party. So, are people calling these people to step down, or they want them to stay? What's going on? Joining me now, conservative commentator Rob Smith and liberal commentator Wendy Osefo. All right, ladies first. Wendy, we'll start with you. I know what's going on here. It is an identity politics pretzel that you guys have wrapped yourself into. Okay? Because you have the governor in blackface. If he resigns, you have the black lieutenant governor accused of sexual assault. And if he steps down, then you have another white Democrat in blackface. So if the lieutenant governor, he steps down and you replace him with the guy that was in blackface, that's going to make the black people angry. And if you let the lieutenant governor stay, accused of sexual assault, that's going to make the women angry.
Well, Virginia is in a pretzel.
Yes.
I don't think it's anything that the Democrats did per se. I always say that when it comes to issues of racism, it's not a GOP problem, it's not a Democratic problem, it is an American problem.
Well, it's a Democrat problem in Virginia.
No, it's not, so to speak, because we've had other issues in Virginia, Charlottesville, that has not been a Democrat problem.
Okay,
so
I'm just talking about the blackface thing, but I get your point.
Racism is as American as apple pie, and that's not something that we can argue.
What are you calling them to do?
I'm asking that they step down.
All of them.
I believe that the AG, as well as the governor.
So the two guys in blackface, you want them out?
Should step down.
And you want the black lieutenant governor accused of sexual assault to be governor?
No, I want the claims brought against him to be substantiated.
Okay, I agree with that. Rob, what do you think?
I think that it's very funny that when you see Democrats being racist, basically, then racism is all of a sudden an American problem.
It's always been,
and whenever there is a racial issue on the Republican side, then it is an example of some sort of deep-rooted issue with racism in the Republican Party.
That's
Look
true.
at the policies
let me just ask
forth.
you, would you forgive any of these Democrats for being in blackface, or is it something they can't recover from, they have to resign immediately?
I think for me, look, I don't think that it's something that they can't recover from. I don't know if I necessarily want people to resign immediately. We were on here, I was with you when we talked about Roseanne, when the whole incident happened with her. And I feel that in situations like this, we always lose the opportunity to have a learning experience. I think that people realize that blackface is bad, but when we have these opportunities to tell them why it's bad, they just don't get it, and we don't teach them this.
People don't
I think that is absolutely crazy that these people were in blackface. And by the way, that yearbook was when he was 25 years old.
Okay, well, this is a learning experience on Watters World, as it always is.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Wendy, about some of these comedians, entertainers. Let's take a look at some of their blackface episodes. We had Ted Danson, famously in blackface many, many years ago in an event. There he is right there. I mean, that's pretty outrageous. You had Jimmy Kimmel not too long ago dressed up as Karl Malone. I mean, he's a big Karl Malone fan. I can't believe you can even find this online. Jimmy Fallon, I think, was Chris Rock at one point. Does it make a difference if it's a celebrity in an entertainment capacity to do blackface? Because I don't think it should make a difference.
It doesn't make a difference. And to go back to Rob's point, we do not know as a country that blackface is bad, because if we did, people would not do it. People only admit blackface is bad once they get caught. That is an issue.
I think 99% of the country thinks it's bad.
I do not think so, because honestly, what you always hear from people is they say, I was not trying to make offense to anyone. I was trying to represent a culture. That's ridiculous.
But if Wendy thinks that the governor and the AG should resign for being in blackface, what do you think should happen to the celebrities?
I absolutely think that there should be ramifications for their
ramifications.
Absolutely.
But we never
they can't resign. They're not in a political
No more
position.
late night shows?
Yeah,
No
but when we
more.
had
No,
the liberal
seriously.
Wow, okay.
So I was watching Jimmy Kimmel do Karl Malone, and for me, the most offensive part of it wasn't him being in blackface. It was like the black voice that he used and that affectation. And you find so much with the liberal comedians that they're given a pass. Ted Danson, Jimmy Kimmel, all these people were given a pass. Sarah Silverman has been blackface as well. And so you never really see that outrage from the public when it's liberal.
I think Robert Downey Jr., he was in blackface. He was nominated
For an Academy Award.
when he was in blackface. What was that movie?
Tropic Thunder.
Tropic Thunder, right. Juan Williams was on The Five the other day, and he made a differentiation when celebrities do it, because he said that when these celebrities and entertainers were doing it, they liked the people that they were imitating in blackface. They were fans of Karl Malone. They were fans of Chris Rock. So he got into the intent. Do you make a differentiation?
It's not about the intent, because everyone knows the history of blackface, which comes from the 1830s, making fun of African Americans and stereotypes that have been juxtaposed to African Americans of being lazy, of being ignorant. Those things, you cannot take that away. Blackface represents that. It does not matter what the intent is. It is wrong.
Well, I can't believe people don't know that.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I think that people just don't know. There's so many people that I talk to.
I think they don't
I think that people don't know the history behind blackface and why and how it has been used to dehumanize African Americans, and how these things, come up again and again and again. Yeah. And I think that whenever this happens, we never really go into that conversation so people can understand why it is so hurtful to African Americans and to black people. And I think that we missed that moment, and I don't want to miss that moment this time, because I think that this is a teachable lesson.
All right, well, Wendy, I think your mom would be proud, because you didn't yell at anybody this time.
Hey, Mom, I did well.
Because we can agree that blackface is wrong.
Absolutely.
Very
liberal,
good.
conservative.
Right. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, Chris Christie makes his first splash into Watters World. And later, who's right and who's wrong? Watters World is debuting a new segment.
The general admitted on Wednesday that he wore blackface to a college party in 1980. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren is entering the race for president. She made it official earlier today during a rally in her home state. Just before her announcement, a manager for President Trump's re-election campaign called her a fraud. I'm Rick Leventhal. Now back to Life, Liberty, and Levin.
Sidney Powell, President of the United States, I think he was set up from day one. Before he was President of the United States.
Oh, I agree.
Even as a candidate, they were focused on him. I think the evidence is abundantly clear, and I don't much care what the Mueller report has to say. There needs to be another report on what took place when President Trump was candidate Trump, when President Trump was President-elect Trump, and then shortly after he became President Trump. There is a stream of factual information that the media essentially reject. But facts are facts that demonstrate that the Obama administration, at the highest levels, at the FBI, we haven't even gotten into the intelligence agencies unmasking individuals like Lieutenant General Flynn. We had a rush to unmask individuals in the last year of the Obama administration like we've never seen before in American history. People have not been pursued in that regard. We had the Hillary Clinton campaign. Earlier this week, there was information that 5 or 6 surrogates of the Clinton campaign were pushing this dossier into the FBI, and among others, Baker, the general counsel, who's now out and under criminal investigation, got a copy. Others also received copies of it because it turns out the Clinton campaign and the DNC, through their straw men and all the rest, they funded this operation, they funded the opposition research, and they pushed it into the FBI, into a friendly senior level of the FBI run by the Obama administration and the Loretta Lynch Justice Department. Now, Mr. Weissman, it turns out, based on this earlier reporting by John Solomon this week, was among several who were told by Bruce Ohr, for America, he served on the staff of the Deputy Attorney General, very senior position. I had the position once. The Deputy Attorney General was an Obama holdover at some point. She became the Attorney General, Sally Yates, extremely partisan and a friend of Andrew Weissman's, as a matter of fact. And Weissman, before he goes into the special counsel, is one of the individuals who Bruce Ohr tells, according to his testimony to Congress in closed session, this dossier, look, my wife works for Fusion GPS, which, secured the dossier, and just be careful about it, because it is involved in opposition research, and there are political aspects to it. So they developed this application that they filed with the FISA court. They put a tiny little footnote in there, which nobody read, including the federal judge who sits there as a FISA court judge, rather than explaining what this dossier is, because they want to ultimately investigate the man who becomes President of the United States, Donald Trump. Not Carter Page, not Manafort, they want Trump. And they get their FISA warrant. And they get it extended 3 times. Not once are these judges told about this really poisonous fruit, this dossier and the facts surrounding it. So I have 2 questions for you in the lead up here. Mr. Weissman, how in the world can he be on the special counsel's staff, really the man behind the man, when he knew from day one about that dossier? And then number 2, where are these federal judges? You and I practice law in federal court from time to time. A federal judge learns that false or misleading information was presented to him or her, and on that basis they sign off on a warrant. I can tell you the federal judges I practice, one in particular, Royce Lamberth, he would have dragged my butt back into court, he would have had an evidentiary hearing, and he would have held me in contempt. Where are these judges? So first of all, how does Weissman get away with this? I guess because Mueller wants him to. And secondly, why are these federal judges, now that they know the truth, it's all out in the media, why are they sitting silently?
Well, Weissman has been doing this for at least 20 years, and Bob Mueller knows it. That's what he brought him on the task force to do, or the
So you
special
think Bob
counsel.
Mueller wants this guy?
He has to.
He picked him.
He handpicked him.
In fact, he's advanced his career over the years.
He has totally advanced his career over the years, and he's protected him. And I know that because Bill Hodes and I filed a grievance against Andrew Weissman while he was Deputy Director General Counsel of the FBI under Mr. Mueller.
What happened there?
Well, ironically enough, the Department of Justice was defending him against the grievance. We filed it with the New York Bar. And unbeknownst to us, the New York Bar punted it to the Department of Justice Office of Professional Responsibility to decide it while the Department of Justice was defending Mr. Weissman on it. And all of a sudden we get a letter from OPR, of course, finding absolutely nothing wrong, even though Mr. Weissman and his team had yellow highlighted evidence that they knew before the trial was favorable to the Merrill Lynch defendants, completely favorable to them, the exact language we needed to defend them before the trial that exonerated them completely.
So he skates
and
on
they
the edge.
hit it.
He skates on the edge. And he just seems to get away with it.
Oh, it wasn't even on the edge. The Fifth Circuit, in our motion for new trial appeal, found that the prosecutors plainly suppressed evidence favorable to the defense. They just bailed out the government by holding it wasn't material.
See, if this Fifth Circuit court ruling, material or not, it shows really sketchy conduct. You have the Supreme Court reversal. You have this man who's told that the dossier really is tainted. He winds up in the special counsel's office. You have these judges who don't plan to do a damn thing about any of it on the FISA court. Now you have them teeing up the President of the United States, and they say, we want to interview the President of the United States. It's no big deal. We just want to know his opinion about why he fired James Comey. We just want to know his opinion about Lieutenant General Mike Flynn. When we come back, I want you to explain to us why that's a problem. We'll be right back. So Sidney Powell, prosecutor's office, special counsel, says, look, we just want to interview the president. We want to know his view on Mr. Comey. We want to know, really why what was his opinion of Mr. Comey? What was his opinion of the Russia investigator? What was his opinion of Mr. Flynn? And the media's out there, if he has nothing to hide, what's the problem? Isn't the problem what you just told us that your own client faced? And explain that.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, neither Mr. Mueller nor Andrew Weissman are interested in the truth whatsoever. They're only interested in whatever they can generate to create a criminal offense against whoever they want to target. And they will do that by any means they can manufacture. Any means they can manufacture. So why are these questions,
why do they ring a bell to you?
Because, for example, my client still stands convicted,
Merrill Lynch executive,
a Merrill Lynch executive, of perjury and obstruction of justice, two separate offenses, for expressing his personal understanding of a telephone call he did not even participate in, after Mr. Weissman instructed him in front of the grand jury to share that personal understanding with the grand jury, whether it was accurate or not. Well, if it doesn't even have to be accurate, how in the world can it be perjury? And how can your personal understanding of something be perjury? It makes no sense whatsoever. But he has 2 felony convictions based on that. And we couldn't get it reversed, thanks to Mr. Weissman.
And you couldn't get it reversed. And Mr. Weissman knows that.
Yes.
And Mr. Weissman takes his old page from his playbook, says, look at this, I got the President of the United States. We just want to ask the President of the United States, what is your personal opinion about the way that Comey and why you removed him? And they find some contradictory piece of information, or something he may have said elsewhere. Even though a president cannot be held for obstruction of justice and firing a subordinate, which I've stated from day one, which others have stated from day one, which is abundantly clear, but they're not going to charge the president. They're going to write a report. And they're going to be able to write a one-sided report. And this is what I wanted to ask you. Prosecutors don't write reports. No. Prosecutors speak in the courtroom, or they keep their mouth shut.
Right.
So we have a special counsel who's going to write a report. Okay, The report is supposed to be a confidential report just for the higher-ups at the Department of Justice. But, of course, Congress is going to demand it. The press is going to demand it. Somebody will likely leak it. So here we're going to have a document by the likes of Mr. Weissman, who will oversee it with his boss, Mr. Mueller. Given your experience with Mr. Weissman, do you expect this report to be a fair report that lays out, you know, the different responses of, or do you expect this report to be the sort of thing that Mr. Weissman is known to do in the courtroom, at sentencing hearings, kind of withholding certain kinds of information, underscoring certain kinds of information? What do you expect from this report?
Mr. Weissman could write a report that would make you're giving your mother a nice Christmas present sound like a federal criminal offense.
So your own experience with this fella and his record, and he's going to be writing the report. And isn't that why Pelosi and the other Democrats and the media say, let's wait for the report. Let's wait for the report, because they know who's going to be writing the report, and I suspect they know some of the things, frankly, that are going to be in the report. Wasn't Mr. Weissman at the Hillary Clinton victory party?
Yes, I've heard that's true.
I understand she lost.
Yes.
And that upset him very much. Didn't he send a communication to Sally Yates, who was the acting attorney general at one point, an Obama leftist appointee who had been the deputy attorney general? And while Schumer and the Democrats were holding up Sessions for confirmation until they could, you know, drag a recusal out of him, she was the acting attorney general who blocked the president of the United States because she was not going to allow the Justice Department to argue for his executive order in defense of it on the limited immigration status of certain countries, individuals from certain countries. And he told her to keep it up. Good fight.
Oh, yes, he was applauding her resistance to the president.
You've been doing this a long time. You're a prosecutor a long time, defense counsel a long time. The media treatment of this. I look at the media treatment of Ken Starr and the media treatment of Robert Mueller, and they're mirror opposites of each other. Have the media gone completely in the tank, do you think?
Oh, yes, I have no doubt about that. But another thing you need to know is that Andrew Weissman is a master manipulator of the media. He did that throughout the Enron litigation also. In fact, he sat in the courtroom with his arm around Mary Flood, who was the lead reporter for the Houston Chronicle throughout the Enron litigation.
Didn't he, at some point during the course of the current investigation, brief the Associated Press, as I recall?
Oh, yes, that was early in, I think before he was on special counsel's team in Department of Justice when he was looking into the Manafort issues.
I'm going to pursue this with you in a moment. Don't forget, folks, almost every weeknight you can watch me on Levin TV. Imagine that, Levin TV. Sign up. Give us a call, 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV. Go to blazetv.com/Mark, blazetv.com/Mark. We'll be right back. Until he was under oath in front of Congress. Why else would he try and leak through his professor friend? McCabe, number 2, leaker. Baker, number 3, the general counsel there, leaker. The number 2 and number 3 are under criminal investigation. Stroke, leaker. Page, I suppose, lots of leaking at the top levels of the FBI in the course of a criminal investigation, first a counterintelligence investigation. Now, in terms of the special counsel's office, I've speculated or surmised that they're leakers. And that's one of the reasons the media treats them so well. Of course, they hate Trump, and they want to see Trump hanging from a telephone pole. But also, you know, these are their sources. So when this BuzzFeed article came out, they basically pointed to the special counsel's office. Where else would you get these documents, texts, emails from? Even if there's a pass-through to anonymous law enforcement officials, they would have had to have come out of Mueller's office. So I went on the radio and I said, for an hour, we have 8.5 million listeners, and that's just on terrestrial radio. I don't know, satellite and the internet. Okay, Justice Department. Now you have your basis for a leak investigation. You need to conduct a leak investigation into Mueller's office. Now, what's a leak investigation involve? You have 2 FBI agents come in, offer lie detector tests. If those prosecutors turn them down, that's fine. They're still going to be interviewed. So all of a sudden, the false statements pops up. All of a sudden, they're on the line. And the questions that they would be asked wouldn't be just about BuzzFeed. Have you ever talked to the media? When did you talk to the media? Who in the media? What media outlets? By the way, we want your texts. We want your emails. We want your phone logs. They would have been caught up in a massive scandal. This is my opinion. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree with you completely. That's Weissman's standard operating procedure. He crafts the narrative he wants in the media to convict people ahead of the charges being brought or ahead of their trial. He did that in the Enron and Merrill Lynch litigation also.
And it's interesting to me that in the mass media, the hard left mass media, there's no criticism whatsoever of this prosecutor's office. I've never seen anything like it. No prosecutor is treated this way. No prosecutor's staff is treated this way. Now, I know they despise Trump. They want him out, that they're mouthpieces for the left and so forth. But their sources have been the head of the FBI, the number 2 at the FBI, the number 3 at the FBI, others at the FBI, people at DOJ, and I believe people in the special counsel's office. And I think that's why they took this rare occasion, actually it's the second time I believe they've done it, to issue this statement and distance themselves from BuzzFeed. This is the story, I think, that the media, even the conservative media, are getting dead wrong. They're praising Mueller. Look at this. I mean, the guy's a good guy. I mean, after all, he put out a statement. It's self-serving.
It was totally self-serving. They were protecting themselves.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of this report that they're writing, you don't doubt that Weissman has a heavy hand in this, right? He's the number 2 under Mueller.
I am sure Mr. Weissman will edit every word of it.
Mm-hmm. And they'll deliver it to the Attorney General. Then the Attorney General will be pressured to deliver it to Congress, to deliver it to the media. But there could be grand jury information in there. There could be national security information in there that honestly has to be removed. And so it seems to me the left, whether they're journalists or members of Congress, are going to argue cover up, cover up, cover up. In other words, they're not going to even let it go with the report. Do you think?
I'm sure there's going to be a huge uproar over all of it.
Well, let me ask you this from a constitutional perspective. A prosecutor issuing a report accusing people of stuff, is that constitutional?
It's wholly inappropriate because the only charges a prosecutor is supposed to bring are in an indictment. And the report should be as minimal as possible and only for the eyes of the Attorney General. Otherwise, it's like what Comey did in his July 5th speech. It's inappropriate from every perspective. It should either be charges are being brought or charges not being brought.
Completely undermines the Bill of Rights. Due process, presumption of innocence, and unfortunately a president who cannot be indicted while sitting in office, according to the Department of Justice. How does he get his name back?
Yeah, it creates a massive smear campaign. But then that's what they want. That's what this was all about to begin with.
We'll be right back. The former Chief of Staff to the Attorney General of the Reagan administration, I can tell you that my Attorney General, Ed Meese, played it straight, fair and square. He told the U.S. attorneys to do